Amid new FAA restrictions, cuts to commercial flight capacity, as well as, of course, the impact of the longest ever federal government shutdown, the aviation industry, rather, is certainly in the spotlight this week. Who better to join us to discuss, to break it all down than George Mattson? He is the CEO at Wheels Up. George, it's nice to have you here. Thanks for taking some time.
Thanks for having me.
So, for those who might be new to Wheels Up, give me a quick overview of the company, your role, and some of the top stories and priorities you're focused on these days.
Sure, absolutely. Wheels Up is one of the leading global private aviation companies focused on private jet travel. We have a large fleet here in the U.S. offering programmatic memberships to our customers, and also a large global charter business, really providing global private aviation solutions to our customer base here in the U.S. and around the world. We started a journey a couple of years ago of bringing all this together into what we think is a unique, very customer-centric offering in an industry that's been a little short on innovation. In partnership with Delta Airlines, our largest shareholder, I came off the board of Delta 2 years ago to run the company after 11 years on the board working with Delta.
The FAA cut commercial capacity by 10% in key markets, including New York, where I am, LA, you name it, a lot of the big ones. What have been the
Atlanta, where I
immediate,
am, yeah.
oh, well, that's the biggest, right? Hartsfeld. So tell me about the immediate impacts that you've already seen in the last week because of that.
Sure. Well, first of all, aviation is never short of its share of challenges operationally, and we have on a good day congested airspace and challenges with the infrastructure, which we know about. Obviously, the shutdown has exacerbated those challenges, but we have been, I think, very differently impacted than commercial aviation. We've been, in many respects, the solve for the challenges that commercial aviation has experienced. And we've seen a spike actually in bookings and demand over the last few days as customers have looked to us to provide a higher level of a capability to get where they need to go in the face of these unique challenges that the shutdown created. Fortunately, we fly to 5,000 airports in the U.S., not the just under 500 that the commercial carriers do. And so there's ways for us to get where we need to go that avoid the need to go to these most congested airports and areas that have been most affected by the constraints of the shutdown.
What differences are you seeing? We're talking a lot about this K-shaped economy, the bifurcated consumer. We've been kind of chatting about it since interest rates first went up, George, but man, that narrative is really front and center right now. And I'd imagine as it pertains to luxury demand for flying, the difference between the haves and the have-nots versus the have-yachts, luxury demand seems to be doing really well. If you're a saver in a high interest rate environment, what are you seeing between the differences of high income consumers versus lower and more moderate income flyers?
Yeah, the segment of the economy that we operate in is really healthy, and we're seeing very strong fundamental conditions and demand for our product offering. In addition to the wealth dynamics with markets at all-time highs and the economy performing well in the aggregate, we have also really benefited from this experience-based economy, I would say. People are spending their money on experiences more than products or goods. And we, along with other elements of the travel industry, have really benefited from that. The other demographic, or I'd say dynamic, that we benefited from is a younger generation of folks who have accumulated substantial wealth. And so we have younger people very interested in experiences, in travel, often with young families that make private aviation even more compelling as a convenience. And so really strong underlying conditions in our industry.
What have been the other impacts of this government shutdown on the aviation industry rather, both commercial and private? We talk a lot about pressure on air traffic controllers. We see the cancellations, we saw the delays. We heard the horror stories of people who were forced to drive across the country instead of flying. From where you're situated, are there parts of the shutdown that you think we haven't paid enough attention to?
Well, first of all, I think it's going to take a little bit of time now that the shutdown is over for operations to return to normal. These commercial aviation network systems take some time to reset, and so I don't think this will correct overnight. It will certainly correct, over a period of days, maybe weeks. Certainly, we hope for everybody involved before the holidays. But I think what it underscores is the fragility of the system and the fact that, as I said, on a good day, we have ongoing challenges around infrastructure, airspace, volume controls, particularly in the busy northeast and southeast corridors of the U.S. And so at some point, the industry and the government is going to need to address those systemic challenges, I would say. And there's been a lot of discussion about that. Those are really not shutdown related, but the shutdown has exacerbated, I think, the acknowledgement of the fragility of the system that we have.
Are you seeing private aviation become more of a necessity? I use that kind of in air quotes for some travelers as commercial options overall shrink a bit.
Well, look, I certainly think that as commercial aviation faces challenges, we are going to be a logical place for people to look. All of the things being equal. I think what we spend a lot of time talking about is private aviation as a sensible, also in quotes, sensible alternative to commercial aviation, and really a complement to an extension of commercial aviation for those corporate customers and those affluent individual customers where it makes sense. The idea of, look, 90% of people who fly privately also fly commercial. And so the question isn't one or the other. I think the question becomes which mode of travel for which trips. And that really goes to the business model we're trying to create, which is a business model that allows customers to select, not for every trip, but trip by trip, their optimal mode of travel. On the way out, it might be a commercial flight. On the way back, it might be a private flight. On the way to Europe, it might be a commercial flight on the quote long leg, and it might be a private option with us for the last mile, so to speak. And so really, we're the first company that is really looking to integrate, I would say, these two modes of travel into one seamless customer-centric offering. And so we don't really see it as a choice between the two, but really how do you optimize the two modes of travel to get the greatest benefit? And there are going to be trips where it makes sense to use us, and there's going to be trips, candidly, where other, commercial mode of travel is perfectly fine. And that's really for the customer to decide. What we're trying to do is provide that customer with a tool set of solutions for them to select from.
George, before I let you go, where can consumers know or go to know more about Wheels Up today, and where can they learn more?
Well, wheelsup.com is certainly a place to start, but we would certainly be happy to talk to anybody who wants to come our way about our unique proposition and how we're approaching this differently and trying to innovate, as I said, in an industry where we think there's a lot of opportunity to attract more people to private aviation in a sensible way.
Yeah, it's a really important time to be having conversations like this. Safe travels to you. I know you are frequently in the air and beyond. George Mattson, CEO at Wheels Up. Come back anytime. Great
Thank
conversation.
you.
We'll do it again
Appreciate it.
soon.
Look forward to it. Thank you.